we'll get that done. And then I'm going to share my screen here. Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's program, How to Build Business When You Can't Leave Home. You know, today's business climate is brutal. It seems our capacity as entrepreneurs and business professionals is being stymied at every turn. You can't go out, you can't connect, you can't network. Now, having stated that, businesses are still open. Prospects and clients still need services and products. The challenge is to find a strategy that bypasses the physical marketing constraints we're facing. Now, there's a marketing and business development for free if you have the courage and commitment to leverage it. It supplies instant access to prospects, referrals, clients, and opportunities 24/7, 365 days a year. I'm talking, of course, about online networks, the ones that we're all a part of. But being a member of an online network and successfully leveraging it are two different things. Like most of you, I've been part of online networks for a while, almost 15 years. I struggled for a long time around maximizing my involvement and my investment. I grew more and more frustrated about the time and resources I was investing with no results. Then in early 2012, I reevaluated my online networking strategy, had an epiphany, and created what I now call the LinkedIn experiment. It dramatically altered my mindset, my participation, and my results using online networks. It was specific to LinkedIn, but it's applicable to any network. My commitment to you today is I'm going to share the entire program. I'll give you all the information and resources you need to start maximizing your online networks as soon as you get off this call. The rest is up to you. Let's get started. First thing I want to do is I want to talk to you about what I call a new online paradigm. And the reason I'm calling it a new online paradigm is because we need to think differently. You know, when any of us go to a board of trade event, I mean, you walk in, you know the environment, you know what to do, online, for some reason, there's a complete disconnect. I know I had that kind of disconnect. And I remember thinking about, like, what do I need to do different? And the reality is, after putting some thought to this, is that for all of us, most of us, social networks, one of the things I had to come to terms with is connecting, interacting on a social network like LinkedIn is the very same as a face-to-face network. In fact, I tell people, if you're not sure what to do online, just fall back on what would you do in a face-to-face environment. And so that helped me reevaluate how I was utilizing my online networks. The second thing is start with the end in mind. I found that I was like a manic depressive when it came to social networks. I'd read a book, I'd go to a course, I'd talk to somebody, and I'd get all excited and go on LinkedIn for a couple of weeks and do a whole bunch of stuff. And then when nothing happened, I'd walk away for a month, or a month and a half, or 2 months. And part of the reason was I didn't have a specific objective. So mine was quite simple, quite frankly. I just decided I wanted to generate $50,000 worth of business from LinkedIn in 6 months. Now, I was quite active on the platform. I was doing a lot of stuff. So that objective was clear, and it was a reality-based objective for me. From where you are, that may be a little too excessive, a little too overwhelming. So what you might want to think about is, what do you want to accomplish on social media, on social networks, specifically LinkedIn, in the next 30, 60, 90 days? Is it more connections? Is it building your brand? Is it get more credibility? Is it, yes, to get clients? But once that objective is clear, you can work everything back. The third piece is less is more. Now, you and I both know there's a plethora of social networks out there. And I mean, I could probably rhyme off 8 or 9 right now, but for the purposes of my business, and maybe even your business, there's what I call the big 3. That's LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Now, LinkedIn is what I call the ambassador's ball. It's formal, it's structured, it's professional. Facebook is what I call the weekend house party. It's kind of loosey-goosey. The line between personal and professional kind of gravitates. Its subject matter areas kind of change. And Twitter is like what I call speed networking. It's life at 140 characters a minute. The reality is you can't be all things to all people. And that was one of the things I was trying to do. So when I went through this little epiphany in this evaluation process, I decided I was going to focus on one network. That's what I tell people in real life. They say, how many networks should I belong to? I say, in reality, you only really need to belong to one network. If you're part of the network of your target market, that's where you need to be. And when I looked at all the social networks, I deal with executives, professionals. I do executive coaching. I speak at conferences. That target demographic is on LinkedIn. So at that point, I made up my mind that I was going to put the majority of my time, effort, and energy around utilizing LinkedIn as my primary online network of choice. Now, I'm not saying that I didn't do Facebook. I didn't do Twitter. I do them all. But I realized that my more strategic approach would deliver better results. The fourth one is slow and steady wins the race. I already talked about me being manic depressive, and many of us are the same way. Well, you know, if you join the board of trade, you pay a membership for a year. You start attending events. It takes time to get people to know you, for you to get to know them, who the players are, to connect with the right people, build relationships, get all that going. I mean, if you wanted to a radio station, you decided you wanted a marketing strategy, would they say, we'll put you on the morning news for a week? That should do it. Well, no. They tell you you've got to be on the air for a period of time, 90 days, 6 months, a year. So my suggestion to you, and what I had to do, was realize that this was an ongoing investment I had to make. And all the stuff I'm going to share with you today, by the way, can be accomplished in 2 to 4 15-minute increments a day, or every second day if that's too much. Now, I'm a little anal about this stuff, so when I looked at this and saw potential, I kind of overcompensated and did a lot. But right now we have time. Now, the last piece, and this was the biggest piece, the biggest transition I had to make with respect to being more successful using online networks, specifically LinkedIn, to build my business, to accelerate my career, and to achieve more and better results. It was realizing and recognizing that I can and needed to use LinkedIn to build relationships. Now, that's a big issue for many people because we see online networks as linear. You're sitting in your office, you're looking at them, you get an invitation to connect, right away we connect with them, we equate that with the relationship. It doesn't work that way. And so in order to be able to put this program into effect, you need to take a step back and think in terms of what you need to do or how can you build relationships. So let me take just a minute and talk about what I call the relationship factor. This is fundamental to the 20 years of research I've invested in networking and networks. And I want to share it with you now so that as we move forward in the practical application of this program, you can better understand what you need to do in order to impact what I call the relationship drivers. The 3 relationship drivers I talk about are trust, value, and contribution. Think of the 2 or 3 highest value relationships in your life right now. Could be your biggest client. Could be someone you've known for years and deeply respect. It could be someone that you work with. Those deep, meaningful relationships, did they happen overnight? Well, of course not. And if you and I could sit down over a coffee and go back and talk about the sequence of events, just true you met them somewhere. And you had that initial conversation. And then as you got to know them better, you got to a little deeper appreciation of who they are and what their value is. And at some point in time, you began to realize the contribution that they made to your life or you made to theirs. See, relationships, building relationships are our primary responsibility. They are the vehicle that creates the business we want and need. I mean, if you're selling Girl Guide cookies, I guess you can just walk out and it's a commodity. But most of you on this call, you sell services, you sell products that are high value and high price. For that, you need to build relationships. People buy people first, ideas next, and things last in that order. Trust is about the basic interaction you have. Every interaction you have with someone either adds trust or takes away trust. That's as true online, even truer online as anywhere else. Value is a two-sided coin. There's internal value, the value that you have, and external value, the values that others need. And I know if you go online and look at somebody's profile, you can see right away, here's how I can help them. That is irrelevant unless they can appreciate your value and how it fits into their value and need. It has to align. And thirdly, the contribution factor is really the key that unlocks all this. So it's about trust, value, and contribution. Now, it works the reverse way too. If you contribute to someone's life, doesn't it impact the perceived value they have about you and accelerate the trust you have? Now, you may be looking at this and saying, well, wait a minute now, Mike. This is online. I don't know any of these people. How can I start doing that? Well, online, there's a fourth driver that is essential and incremental to exponentially driving the relationship process. It's context. Context is the emotional link you have. You see, as human beings, we're naturally drawn to others, drawn to community. We learned years and years ago that coming together and being part of a community was essential for protection, for productivity, and for procreation. So belonging to a network automatically connects you with another person. Isn't it true when you're sitting there working and in your Outlook message, there's a request to connect on LinkedIn? Doesn't it make you feel like, oh yeah, somebody wants to talk to me? See, there's an emotional link already there that you can build on. So now that I've shared those two pieces with you, let me talk to you maybe why it doesn't work. So let me talk about the networking obstacles that we face individually when it comes to moving from the real life face-to-face networking to online networking. Here's the first obstacle that quite frankly I had to deal with. It was my biggest issue, and that's technology. Full disclosure, I'm technology averse, okay? And it amazes me when I talk to people who are on LinkedIn and we're talking about how to utilize them more effectively, saying, well, geez, Mike, I want to change my profile. I don't know how to do that. Can you tell me how what's the difference between a blog and an article, and how can I do that? So my first question is, how competent are you on the platform? How competent do you feel about utilizing this network to effectively build your business and build relationships? It's about competency. So here's a little self-assessment. If you're on this call, I want you to listen very carefully, please. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your competency with using networking as a platform to build your business and build relationships? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I'm not even on, and 10 is I'm a master. If you're not at an 8, you need to go and get better at it. So how can you get better at it? There's all kinds of courses, tutorials out there inside LinkedIn and outside LinkedIn, on your profile, on how to market, all different pieces. So go and get the education you need. That's a must. That's the price of admission if you want to look at this platform in these difficult times and be able to leverage them effectively. Second one is communication. 80% of our communication today, my communication, is electronic. And I'm sure it's the same for you. And when you think in terms of communicating with folks via an online network like LinkedIn, it's electronic communication. Part of the problem is for many of us, it's a one-way communication. It's filtered. Our electronic communication tends to be structured, tends to be cold and curt, right? The sentences are getting smaller. We want to drive it out. It's all about doing that. It's important and essential that you change your thinking, your behavior, and your capacity when it comes to the language you use when communicating online. You need to be intentionally more conscious of the holistic aspect of relationships. And when you connect with people, you want to ensure you're starting a conversation. Not as many of us have had, where you connect with someone and the next message is they want to have a quote unquote discovery meeting with you to see how they can be helpful to you. Would you do that in a face-to-face conversation? Well, of course not. So it's all about realigning, adapting your communication so that it's more intentional. Humanize the online communication that you have. And the final one is really the simplest one, and for many of us, it's the biggest piece. We find communicating online, reaching out to others, there's a fear of rejection, fear of embarrassment. I remember I got an email from someone that I knew, a colleague. She was saying, I'm getting these requests to connect on LinkedIn. Like, what should I do? Well, respond. But it's hard. In many cases, we're not sure what the online etiquette is. We have action paralysis. It's overwhelming. It's stressful. So here's my suggestion. First of all, accept reality. First of all, the more competent you are about how to use the platform, the more confident you'll feel about communicating. Secondly, start with small steps. Take 2 or 3 of the things I talk about today. Start implementing this week. As you grow, as you experiment, as you utilize the platform and start communicating more effectively, the fear will subside. Your fear of rejection, your fear of embarrassment will go away. I mean, I had to do that. So now that I've shared those 2 pieces with you, the relationship drivers, how you can use the online network to grow relationships and how to overcome the obstacles that are in there, let me share with you what I call the 5 C's of online networking success. The first and foremost, it's important that you think in terms of being clear about what it is you want and need. What am I talking about? I'm talking about, first of all, I'm talking about your purpose, your plan, and your profile. I'm talking about your purpose here because if you're serious about this, if you look at your situation now and say, I'm blocked, and the one avenue I have to get out is using my online network, specifically LinkedIn, you have to be clear on what your value is, what your strengths are, and who you want to connect with. It's the who, what, where. What's your purpose? What's the value you bring to folks? Because that's what you want to communicate. That's where you want to come from. The second piece is what's your plan? You have a 90-day plan? You have a 60-day plan? You have a 30-day plan? What do you expect? What are the objectives you want to accomplish in those timelines? And then the third piece is, what are the activities that you're going to do today and this week in order to move that plan forward? The clearer your plan is, what is it Jim Rohn said? If your purpose is clear, you'll pay any price. So we talk about clarifying your purpose, what your value is, what your strengths are and who you want to connect with, your plan, what do you want to accomplish in the next 90 days, where do you want to be, next 60 days, next 30 days, and what are the activities you commit to doing? Remember, 2 to 4 15-minute increments a day or every second day will get you started moving in that direction. Now, the last piece I want to give you here is I believe to be the starting point, the launch pad of your success. And that's your profile, right? Now, why am I saying that? Well, let me ask you a question. I'm sure many of you get requests to connect, right? You get a request to connect. What's the first thing you do? You go and check that person's profile, right? It's your online avatar. Now, many, if not most people, do not set up their profile right. Why? Because it's a marketing tool. LinkedIn's history is its original business case was at part of an executive search program. So most profiles are set up like a resume that talks about what our strengths are and where we're going and what we've done and all this kind of stuff and everything and the kind of people we want to work for and all this kind of stuff. The reality is it's a marketing tool. So here's the key. The key is your profile is what tells people exactly who you are. It's your online avatar. There are 3 keys to your profile. Number 1 is it must, starting out of the gate, speak to your value to the marketplace and the target market that you want to do business with. That's got to be communicated strongly and consistently throughout your entire profile. In fact, everything that you do, everything you do and communicate on your profile should strengthen or support the value that you bring and the target markets that you want to do business with. Too often, I see profiles that are set up, they're a floodlight kind of profile, where they're so generic in general, they want to appeal to everyone. Here's how you want to, listen, there are 675 million users on LinkedIn. Your job is to help those people who want and need the products and services you have find you more quickly. You will do that by focusing first and foremost on the value that you deliver and who you deliver it to, and having your profile consistently communicate that. And here's the kicker. I'm glad you're all sitting down for this. The kicker is it's got to be done in 3 to 5 seconds. 3 to 5 seconds. People scan. People who go to your profile, take a quick scan, and then they either decide to move forward or not. So how can I take this piece and help you do it? Well, you can go to any tutorial on LinkedIn or just do a search, a tutorial LinkedIn profile, and people will give you 15, 20 different ways to do it. I'm going to give you what I consider to be the big 5 that I think have the most impact. This is a screenshot of my profile on LinkedIn. So first and foremost, it's about your headline. Because your headline is what appears anytime you. Mine says, helping business sales professionals identify, access, and leverage networks for optimal results. The second one is your current. Now, in the current profile, that's not as executive as it should be. If you look down the middle of the page across from where it says highlights, you can see it says Michael J. Hughes celebrating 29 years at NFR Consulting Group, building better relationships that drive referrals, results, revenues, and results. It supports and complements what my headline says. The third one is your picture. And your picture should be a professional headshot. Not you in front of the Eiffel Tower, not you with your dog. There's research that confirms that 80% of profiles are seen as more professional when you have a professional headshot. Fourth one is connections. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, online size matters. I mean, I can remember when I was doing my research for this, I was listening to a tutorial about profiles, and the facilitator, the person delivering the tutorial, was talking about, went to 2 profiles and talked about one, and then he went to another profile, and he said, oh, geez, this guy's got 500 plus connections. He must really be connected. But think about it, when you go to somebody's profile and they have like 32 connections or 117 connections, does your perception of their professionalism drop a little bit? Why? Because this is all we have to speak to. Now, the last one I want to give you is the sleeper. It's the one most people miss and the one that you need to make sure that you're taking advantage of. It's the summary. It's the about piece. Professionals end up putting all of their career history, all of their benefits and all that. Here's the reality. 90% of people who go to your profile will not look below what they see here. So whatever information you want to communicate to strengthen or support your value and target market needs to be in that first line. Yes, some of them will. If they have an interest, they'll click on the see more and go down and do it. Most people won't. In fact, most people will look at this and make a decision. In fact, the information you have below, whether it has to do with career, whether it has to do with past connections, whether it has to do with, all of that should support and strengthen whatever value and target market information you have at the top here. I see people all the time that have 8 or 9 past career roles in their profile, half of them that don't even relate to what they have. I had 2 management roles prior to the last professional mandate I had, corporate mandate, that aligns with what I'm doing now. I don't even put them on there. Why? They're not relevant. So that's the primary piece. So this talks about helping you build that profile. Now, having your profile, having your plan, recognizing your purpose are all important information, but they're just the price of admission. If you want to be more successful utilizing online networks like LinkedIn, more successful, you need to have courage. And by courage, I mean you need to take the action to reach out to the community. Let me ask you a quick question here. First of all, if you spent all the money to join the Ottawa Board of Trade, if you filled out the application, the membership application, and then you ended up going to an event, and you walked into that room, and there were, I don't know, 30, 50 people there, and you walked around that room and didn't talk to anybody, just exchanged business cards and went home, would you expect to get any business of that? Would you expect to build relationships? Well, of course not. And you're saying, why would you say this, Michael? Well, let me ask you what happens here. So you're sitting at home and you get a request to connect on LinkedIn. What's the first thing you do? Well, the first thing you do is you go and check the person's profile, right? So you look at their profile, and if they're not from Namibia selling blood diamonds, if they're local, they're professional, what do you do next? You, of course, accept the request to connection. What happens next? Absolutely nothing. That's what I used to do because I wasn't sure what to do. So if you want to take advantage of the current situation, and tap into the potential and power that LinkedIn has for you, here's what you need to do. You need to start being courageous, and you need to start doing three things. First of all, is you need to think in terms of using LinkedIn to reignite existing connections. Number two, you need to utilize LinkedIn to respond to invitations in a way that starts the relationship. And the third thing you need to do is you need to start reaching out to people. Now these, for some of you looking at this, you say, whoa, wait a minute now, that's a little overwhelming, Michael. That's how, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that. So let me walk you through each, because I went through those same emotions. So the first one, the easy one here is igniting existing connections. Each and every one of you already has a LinkedIn network. I mean, you've probably been cultivating it for the last 3, 5, 7, 10 years. And you know, if you did an analysis of your LinkedIn network, what you would probably find is the same as I did when I did my initial assessment of my LinkedIn profile demographic results. I found that 80% of the connections I had were colleagues and contacts and personal connections. Only 20% were business connections aligned with the targeted demographics that I wanted to do business with. I was amazed. It floored me. But I said, you know, I can use this as a starting point. First of all, I have 20%. So my message to you is, if you want to start using LinkedIn today, do a little scan of your current LinkedIn connection base and pull out the 8 to 10 connections you feel are the highest value connections for you, whether they're prospects, whether they're aligned with corporations you want to do business with, or if you're a charity that you feel are in line for donations. Pull those names out and then look to reignite the existing connections. Now people say, well, wait a minute, Michael, how can I do that? Well, there's 3 ways to reignite existing relationships, lapsed relationships, I call them. And the three ways to reignite those are topical, timely, or personal. So topical is to find an article, a piece of information that relates to them and their mandate or role, and send it to them. Timely is a connection with that person that deals with the timeliness of some issue or item that relates to them, either professionally or personally. And that, you know, that could be something like a promotion they have, a difficult time they're going through. And then the third one is personal, something about them, their family, a birthday, something having to do with their children. All of those ways are ways to reignite the relationship. See, online, there's what I call relationship inertia. And relationship inertia means that there's nothing going on. And so what you need to do is you need to get that relationship going back and forth. So those are reigniting existing relationships. And that's an easy one for you. The next one is responding to invitations. Remember what I just told you about what happens when we accept the invitation. When I went through my little self-analysis in 2012, I started thinking about that. I said, you know what? There's a reason why these people are reaching out to me. And they're not doing it by accident, right? Either the system is telling them to, or they saw something that you wrote or posted or shared that they like, or someone told them to do it. So I said to myself, you know what? I'm not going to just accept that they're going to connect with me. I want to know why. So here's what I started to do. When I got a request to connect and I went to view the person's profile, their avatar, and validated there was some value for me, when I accepted the invitation to connect, here's what I sent them. Hi, Susan. Thanks for reaching out. I want to be part of your LinkedIn network. Be curious about why you chose to connect with me. Regards, Michael. Now, I've got to tell you, I was amazed at what started to happen. What happened was people started writing back to me, validating the reasons why they wanted to connect with me. And there was all kinds of reasons. Some of them were self-serving. Some of them were logical. Some of them were sincere. But what that did is it acted as some momentum to take that relationship pendulum and kick it out. So I sent them a message. They sent a message back to me. And so what I was able to do with that invariably is go back to their profile, find something else about them that I thought was interesting or contextual, and use that to keep the pendulum going. Now, my objective was always the same, to talk to them live. Why? Because talking to them live is where the selling can start. So the key issue here is to get this going. Now, I got to tell you, within 30 days of starting this strategy, and I mean, I had a fair amount of LinkedIn connections coming to me because I'm quite active, and I was quite active on LinkedIn. So people would naturally want to connect with me. Within 30 days, I was having 2 to 3 phone conversations or face-to-face meetings with people as a result of initiating this. If you take nothing else out of this program, I'm going to recommend that what you do is you try this. So once I was doing that, I started having success with this. I mean, I was having conversations. I was starting to talk to people. I mean, some opportunities came out. I started generating referrals, and I got a client out of it. So this can lead to that. But then I started saying to myself, you know what? This is like picking the low-hanging fruit. I'm waiting for people to contact me. I wonder what would happen if I started reaching out to people. Then I said, wait a minute. No, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to reach out that you don't know. Then I said, well, wait a minute now. Number one, LinkedIn tells me I can. In fact, every time I open my newsfeed, they say, here's people you may know. So they're kind of giving me permission. And I said, well, you know what? If I'm a member here and I can find ways to reach out, I want to reach out to people. But I said, I think I want to be careful, because your thought might be, all I'm going to do is I'm going to start just firing out invitations to connect to people. And it's like throwing spaghetti against the wall, right? I'll just find enough and people will want to join me. And so I said, well, wait a minute, I can't do that. So there needs to be a better way. So I said, you know what I need to do? I need to be more strategic. So here's what I did. When I decided to utilize LinkedIn as an outbound business development strategy, because this is where I'm at now, is you using LinkedIn as an outbound business development strategy, here's what I decided to do. I said, before I do that, what's my objective? In my case, it was to generate $50,000 worth of revenues in 6 months. And by the way, I didn't raise $50,000 in revenues in 6 months. I exceeded that. It amazed me. So I wrote down this page. I said, what are the markets that I want to work with? Well, in my case, it was financial, it was corporate, and it was associations. And then in industries, it was insurance, it was banks, it was technology in industries. And in associations, it was project management, it was engineering. And companies, I put down the names. Dell, Scotiabank, Canadian Association of Association Executives. The demographics, because we all tend to deal with a particular decision maker, right? So it could be regional vice president of marketing. It could be executive VP of human resources. It could be company owner of a company of 20 employees or more. And I actually put names, the names of people that I knew were within these companies, these organizations, that were decision makers. I listed those names. I put that on one page and I put it in front of me on my desk, so that every time I went back to LinkedIn, and we all do it, right? Well, you go onto LinkedIn, I don't know, maybe twice a day, maybe once a day, maybe every second day. But every time you do, what comes up? The news feed. Well, you scroll down the news feed. As I scroll down the news feed, I watched for companies, demographics, or names that were in this. And I went to look at them. When I found someone that I felt fit these criteria, I invited them to connect. Now you may say, well, wait a minute now. How will I know they're going to answer me? Well, number one, if they're on the platform, if they're responding to messages, if they're commenting, if they're sharing stuff, they grasp the concept. And when you send that invitation to connect, what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to go look at your profile, right? When you look at your profile and see the value that it brings, and that the markets that you do business with, which includes theirs, they will be positively inclined to connect with you. Now, will everybody connect with you? No. Well, some of them will. Yes. I was amazed. It was incredible, absolutely incredible. The next piece is creating engagement, because reaching out to them is one thing. Having them answer is another thing. And so I got to tell you, over the 3 to 6 months I was actively involved in creating this program, I sent out any number of responses to people in different walks of life, different demographics, different companies, different industries. And what I found was there was a specific response, specific responses, specific scripts that generated more response. There are 3 main areas that I found I got more responses than others. The first one is industry. And of course, that's the natural link between you and the prospect or the professional that you're looking to connect with. In my case, it might have been banking. And I might say, you know, hi, Susan. Thanks for the privilege of being part of your LinkedIn network. Just wanted you to know, I just did some work with your counterpart in Southwestern Ontario. Love to share some of the insights that were most beneficial to them and see how it might be helpful to you. That's industry. That's the one we think about. But remember, this is about relationships, expanding relationships. You know, the other one is proximity. And most of you on this call deal with a certain geographic region. And the more those people are in that region, the more there's the connection to them. One of the ones that worked best for me was, hi, John. Thanks for the privilege of being part of your LinkedIn network. As a past chair of the Ottawa Board of Trade, I'm quite active in our community. Love to have a conversation, find out more about you and your role. And then the third one is affinity. And affinity is something that is not aligned with anything that has to do with industry or your professional capacity, but something in their profile that you are connected to or that can utilize as a connection point. I mean, I remember one, I sent a request to connect to the Vice President of Canada for UPS, Vice President of Sales. And he had on his profile, he has a picture of him and his family and his daughter in a First Communion dress. And the message I sent, you know, hi, John, thanks for the privilege of being part of your LinkedIn network. Love the profile picture. Is this a special occasion? And he responded that it was his daughter's First Communion and everything. I said, wow, that's fabulous. Love to have a quick chat and find out more. His message back to me was, are you available for a call at 7:30 tomorrow morning? So my message to you is that once you have the courage to reach out, it's important as a professional that you take responsibility for building relationships and creating engagement. In fact, I've created a number of scripts that actually have had a lot of success. Now, of these 3, by the way, one of them delivers better results than others. Now, they all deliver results, okay? But one of them I found has a propensity for more results than think about it. The one that I found has the biggest results, the most prominent results, is proximity. Is proximity. And if you go back to Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink, he talks about proximity. The closeness to another person is what drives a relationship. So that's creating engagement. So you start that pendulum going back and forth. Remember, this is all about, my messaging here is all about moving the relationship pendulum to a point. My objective is to talk to them live, because that's when the real relationship building can start. So let's talk about what I call commitment. Because at this point, this is no longer a LinkedIn program. This is no longer an online network program. This is a business development strategy. It's all about taking that relationship and moving it forward. It's about building trust on a continuous basis. It's about eliciting value and communicating value on an ongoing basis and building your relationship to a point where that other person can readily see the contribution that you can deliver to them, or the contribution that you can that they can make for you. Now, how do you do this? What needs to happen? Here's the difficult part. The difficult part is ensuring that you take that relationship process and you do it in 90-day increments. Think in terms of it. If you move this to face-to-face networking, isn't it true? You go to an event and meet somebody, you get their business card. By the time you line up a call, it's a week to 2 weeks later. By the time that moves forward and you do a face-to-face, it's probably 30 days. By the time you move forward and submit that proposal, it's maybe 60 days. So you need to take that same strategy to do that. So when I was to this point and decided that what I wanted to do was utilize this as a business building strategy. I said, you know what? There's so much going on here, because by this point, I was starting to get multiple connections and opportunities coming up. I said, I need a structure. So I created this CRM, and I'm okay with that. I found that for my purposes, especially using what I call the 5% that matter, because of all the people you meet, there's 5 to 10% of those people who represent the relationships and the results that you want and need. And if you can build those relationships effectively, prioritize them, invest the right amount of time with them, you'll move them forward. So this, if you move across this sheet, you can see that there's, the option. Is it LinkedIn or is it inbound or outbound? Did they reach out to me? Did I reach out to them? The date I started, my stick in the sand. What's their contact info? What market are they in? What category does it work for me? What's the program? What's my status? And I have 4 status levels. I have confirm interest, I have tentative, I have proposal, and confirm. And my job is to move them up the status ladder to get to the point. The next step and date is the most important piece on this little dashboard. That's where I ask myself, what do I need to do to move this relationship forward, and when do I commit to do it by? And then, of course, the last one is the date confirm. What's the result? By utilizing the structure, you can ensure you're doing the right things with the right people to move the relationships forward. What will all this bring you? Well, my experience has been, if you focus on a collaborative mindset, rather than looking at LinkedIn as strictly a client prospect direct line, if you expand your thinking and think in terms of collaborating with others, because we all have value to help one another. Every person you meet has the potential to help you in some way. Your job is to discover what that value is as you get to know them better. What can they bring to you? Sure, clients. My message to you is, if you invest in this business building strategy, focus on LinkedIn for the next 30 to 60 days, you will find clients that want to do business with you. No question in my mind. But to me, that's just the tip of the iceberg. You will find people who will refer you to their family, to their friends, to their clients and colleagues when they become more aware of your integrity, your professionalism, and your competency. You'll find opportunities. And the thing about relationships is people see opportunities in us that we never thought of, because they see us differently. So the more you build relationships, the more you collaborate with others, seek to collaborate with others, and find a way to help one another, they will see opportunities in you that you never thought of. And the bottom line thing is resources. We're all in a tough bind right now. And the more you connect with people, grow your network, the more you'll find people who will be helpful to you. So here's my last slide here. Here's a little action plan for you. And this is what I wanted to leave you with as we part company here today. Number 1, zero in on your ideal clients and markets. Have a targeted, strategic approach. The good news is this is a huge network that's going on 24/7. The bad news is it's a huge network that's going on 24/7. You need to be completely strategic about where you're going. You need to focus on that. The second thing is interaction and engagement before business. Interaction and engagement before business. You want to get people moving forward. Be sincere and warm. You can convey sincerity, compassion, interest online. Listen to the words I was using when I was talking about the scripts I was using. I'd love to be of service. I want to see how I can help. People relate to that. The next one is context and contribution accelerate trust. The more you have a focus on being a and supporting and aligning with what their needs are, the more they will respond to you. And the last piece is, I call this being intelligently selfish, is you need to link into the sales cycle. If I'm sure you're not on this call, you're not on this program today because you need more friends. What I want you to do is think in terms of building relationships towards the outcomes that you want and need. By linking it into your sales cycle, that will force you to ask the hard questions, to continue leading the relationship into the professional areas you need to help you and them lead to where you want to go. Now listen, this completes the program for today. I got one more slide I want to show you. Listen, I've driven this at you over the last 45 minutes. I've given you everything I've got. Hopefully, it's a complete program you've got. You probably won't be able to remember it. So what I'd like to do as a value-added resource is I'd like to send you a copy of the recording I've made of this. All you need to do is send me an email at info@networking4results with REC in the subject line, and I'll send you a copy of this recording. It'll have the text with it. It'll have my beautiful picture up the top right-hand side as I'm talking, and we'll have all of the slides so you can go back and use this as a professional development event. So I'm going to stop sharing at the moment. I'm going to terminate the recording.